Welcome to the Road to Care podcast hosted by SamaCare, where we will talk with key opinion leaders, physicians, administrators, manufacturers, venture capitalists, and legislators to get their insights on the state of healthcare today and where we see it evolving. SamaCare's prior authorization platform is free to clinics, ensuring patients get on the right therapy at the right time. Together, we can simply make things right. Hey everybody, thanks again for joining the Road to Care podcast hosted by SamaCare. And today our special guests are Bryan Johnson and Reece Norris of WeInfuse. Bryan's a co-founder, product manager, and CEO of WeInfuse and has 25 years of experience in the healthcare industry, including being CEO of RX Toolkit, and served in management positions at Paragon Healthcare and Innovative Infusions. Before co-founding WeInfuse, he served as co-founder and lead innovator and chief problem solver of Innovative Infusions, LLC, which is a multi-site infusion center company based in Texas. Bryan is also a founding member and board member of NICA. Reece is the co-founder and chief operating officer of WeInfuse and began his career in corporate law and eventually entered the provider-based infusion center market, where he went on to create a first-of-its-kind infusion delivery business model. Before co-founding WeInfuse, Reece served as president of Innovative Infusions, LLC, a multi-site infusion center company based in Texas from 2008 to 2012. And Reece is also a founding member of NICA. Hey, fellas, thanks for joining. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having us. Grateful for our SamaCare partnership and grateful to be here on the podcast today.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I want to hear, how did the train get started with WeInfuse? Let's talk about your origin story. Why did you guys found it?
Yeah, sure, Kip. This is Reece again. I'm going to take the lead on this one. Well, our story begins in college. Bryan and I were college friends. And at the time, my dad was starting a company called Innovative Infusions, which he referenced in our bios. And that was a management company where my dad and his small team, it was a startup, were managing infusion suites for physicians. So a physician office that wanted to have an infusion suite or center or had an infusion suite or center would be run by the management company Innovative Infusions. Bryan was looking to do something entrepreneurial out of college, so I connected him with my dad even before we graduated. And Bryan really started to help build out at the time some very novel things for businesses, a website, email domain, ways to share documents for the company online, things like that. So he got started early on as an intern, if you want to call it that, and then came on full time after college. I went to law school, but was very intrigued, right? A good friend of mine's working with my dad. They're building this business. I was constantly communicating with Bryan about the growth. I ended up graduating law school, and ultimately in 2008, I was working at a law firm, and there was some partnership transitions, and it opened up an opportunity for me to join the business. And at that time, my dad really handed the keys to me and Bryan. And so me and Bryan inherited the business Innovative Infusions, which at the time was just a management company. And we quickly did a few things. One, Bryan started building a proprietary software solution for our own sites. And two, we transitioned from being just a manager of infusion centers to owning infusion centers. So we started to wind down the management business and actually open our own infusion centers. We also launched during that same time frame the National Infusion Center Association. So NICA and our legacy software solution really helped propel us as our journey kept moving forward, and we launched WeInfuse. So we had these infusion centers that we now owned, because we had transitioned out of the management model. And that was around 10, and we ran those for about 2 years, and were approached by Paragon Healthcare, which was another home infusion pharmacy player in Texas, and they thought it would be a good strategic acquisition. So we ended up selling our infusion centers to Paragon. It was a really amicable business transition and M&A opportunity. Bryan and I actually stayed on with Paragon for almost 4 years post-acquisition, so from 2012 to 2016. And then we launched WeInfuse after we left Paragon in 2016. But it took us about a year to get, a meaningful, minimal viable product. We were building and raising funds through 2016, but really didn't go live with our first client, which was a neurology practice that accepted external referrals. So it was really a multi-specialty infusion center. We didn't go live until December of 2017. And then from there, we really just hit the ground running, building on a sales team, had some meaningful wins in 2017, and really our growth took off in 2018 until today. So we're grateful for all of our clients, our investors, our partners like SamaCare that trusted us along the way. Today, we're now in 1,000 infusion centers. Our software's live in over 1,000 infusion centers today, and grateful for all the clients that trust WeInfuse. We've also done an acquisition. WeInfuse and RX Toolkit are now under the same parent company. So grateful to have RX Toolkit alongside WeInfuse as well.
Thanks, Reece. That's a great story, and we love the partnership too. I mean, it's a match made in heaven. And before I get to the next question for Bryan, Reece, so do you still practice law, and can I get you on retainer, or what's the deal there?
I mean, I'm still a licensed attorney, still keep my license active, and effectively do most of the legal work and quarterback a lot of the legal work within WeInfuse. So whether I like it or not, I'm still practicing law.
That's awesome. On to the next question for Bryan. We've seen, I mean, just over the past few years, this mass migration from hospital systems, that's where you would go to get an infusion, to these AICs or ambulatory infusion centers. And it's a booming market. According to one report by Coherent Market Insights, global ambulatory infusion centers is actually grown to $47 billion in 2024 with a CAGR of 10.6. That could be literally the fastest growth healthcare segment in the industry today. What are the factors that are driving that growth?
Yeah, Kip, this is Bryan. I think Reece and I have seen that as well. I think that was part of when we started WeInfuse, why we thought a software technology play would be important here in the industry. I think we knew this was coming. We foresaw it in the drug development. We were seeing the FDA was cruising around, 75% of the drug applications were for biologic medications and specialty drugs. And just our knowledge of those, knowing that a lot of those would have to be intravenous or injected under provider's care. We were like, wow, there's going to be a need for a lot more infusion centers around the country. There weren't. I mean, there were a lot of hospital-based infusion facilities. There were management companies. Of course, there are physicians doing infusions in their own office, but our prediction was that there were going to be a lot more sites of care. And of course, there was going to need to be technology to enable that. So the foresight we had turned out to be true. It doesn't always work that way. We won't tell all those stories today, but not all of our ideas work. But that number, which I think is still hovering around 75, 80% of drug applications, new drugs from the FDA being on that large molecule side, or just, the routes of delivery involve a needle. And so I think that's what's really driving a lot of that growth. And then, with that, the side of care not being there. I mean, if you look around the country, there's still pockets all over the place where people are driving an hour plus, even over to another state to go get their medications. And these are chronic medications that patients need. Weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, every 6 months, whatever. So there's still a big need for side of care. And in this business specifically, it requires a nurse or being really close proximity to the patient. So you can't build a big warehouse and ship these drugs out all over the place because they need to be delivered in a one-on-one healthcare setting. So you got your neuro drugs, your rheumatology drugs, everybody knows about these for diseases, but we're getting biologics in other forms of therapy, like in behavioral health, with Alzheimer's coming out with some of the new drugs like Kisunla and Leqembi. You're just seeing more and more specialties get involved where they didn't traditionally do that. So it's just really the medication boom is driving the need for sites of care. So that's why you're seeing the growth. And then the last one being site of care optimization. We've traditionally had these medications given in a hospital or institutional setting. It's of course the highest cost of care that there is. And insurance companies, payers paying attention to that are really driving patients out of the hospital. They want them in lower cost sites of care, more convenient geographically to the patient's homes and where they work. So I think if you add up all those three, the rise in drug applications and drug approvals with the need for more sites of care that are optimized near the patient, that's what's going to drive it for a while until that site of care need is met.
Yeah, well, I mean, you said the statistic, 80% of new FDA drugs are specialty drugs. And back in the 90s, there was only 30, right? And that seems like a long time ago, right? But it's not. It's a heartbeat. And, in the last podcast, we had Christine Mann on, who I know was a friend of yours as well from Dent and Neuronet and NICA. And she had just been up to Capitol Hill 2 times. And we had discussed, do they get it? Do the legislators get it? What are they getting right? What are they getting wrong? And one of the things she said is they're very in tune. They're really interested in this segment. They really want to understand it for the patients. But where they got hung up is they thought, really all infusions were just oncology. And Bryan, you mentioned it. I think part of this is awareness too. Now you've got behavioral health, you got cardiology, which just a couple of years ago got into the infusion space for the first time in their history, and rheumatology and neurology as examples. And I would assume that creates challenges and opportunities, not only for you guys, but the clinics. Maybe talk about what WeInfuse is solving on the challenges side for these clinics, And then what opportunities are out there in the future that you see?
Yeah, Kip, this is Reece. We were owning and operating our own infusion centers. There was not a tech stack or a EHR, if you will, dedicated to infusion therapy. And so before we built our own system, we were hacking multiple disparate systems to run our own infusion centers. That was really a light bulb moment for us. There's so many unique aspects to the infusion workflow that are just different than treating a patient in an exam room or seeing a patient at the bedside of a hospital, that it does warrant, we believe, and I think the market has said yes to as well, WeInfuse as a software application was needed, and a specific technology for infusion centers is needed. When we launched WeInfuse, the core functionality was benefits investigation, management. These very expensive drugs have to get approved by the payer, and there's a whole workflow where you do an investigation around the patient's insurance benefits. So whether that's tracking prior authorization, expiration dates, recording certain meaningful conversations you've had with the payer, making sure you're asking the right questions with the payer, and logging all that into a system that communicating to the schedule. And the schedule is making sure you don't see a patient past a prior auth expiration date. So we're trying to build in a lot of guardrails so no one's left holding the bag, so to speak, if someone's insurance is expired or termed, or the patient's authorization has expired or termed. In addition to prior auth management, which now we integrate with SamaCare, which is great, we have electronic eligibility. And then, again, I mentioned patient scheduling. We had chair-based, purpose-built scheduling. We have clinical documentation that's actually driven by the infusion medication. So clinical documentation specific to certain infusion medications. We have inventory management. Even within an infusion center, the inventory management is very complex. It comes from a distributor where you own the inventory, or another way to get to house inventory at an infusion center is through specialty pharmacy shipping patient-specific medication to your infusion center. WeInfuse has two separate inventory systems, one for the inventory you own, which is buy and bill inventory, and then another inventory system for specialty pharmacy patients or patients receiving the drug from a third party, and it's drug they don't own because it's in the patient's name. So we account for that separately. And then from there, we have a robust reporting and analytics engine. We've done multiple feature expansions, including patient engagement, billing and claims capabilities, data analytics capabilities. And now we're moving into home infusion as specialty pharmacy as well. But that's a lot of information. I'll pause there just to sum it up. WeInfuse solves a lot of the unique workflow challenges that infusion centers face every day.
Yeah, man, I know it does. And this is a little bit different animal on the ambulatory infusion center side, where you're getting all of these referrals from multiple specialties coming in to this hub of the spokes of the AICs, and your solution creates efficiencies for those folks. But still, the AMA came out with data and said that 46% of patients that require an injection or an infusion, or the Part D or the J codes, your buy and bill medications simply don't get on them or miss their data service. And these are oncology patients. These are rare disease patients. So how does WeInfuse really help get those patients to the right infusion centers?
I'll speak to the patient side real quick. I think Reece talked through a lot of the tools that help get patients on therapy. There's the patient challenge and the provider challenge. Provider being, you're a neurology practice trying to get your patient on a drug in your own infusion suite, or you're trying to get them out to an ambulatory infusion center, standalone infusion center. I think there are challenges on both sides, but I think majority of the challenges are on the provider side at the moment. And again, I think Reece walked through the layers and layers of tools in WeInfuse, and that would be needed for any successful operation to go from order to chair, right? To go from prescription to chair, if you want to use that term. And I think the payers are layering all of this. We call it the pre-treatment workflow, but it's really like in payer terms, it's utilization management, right? That's the word they like to use, where they're putting really their barriers, right? I mean, that's what they are. Hey, you have to have an authorization. This has to meet some sort of clinical protocol. There's a step therapy at place. You have to try and fail these two drugs before you get this drug. There has to be a lab done, and you have to have that available. So there's just a lot of things in order to get the patient actually in the chair treated, and of course have the claim paid. You got to check all those boxes. And because the chronic nature of this business and these drugs and these disease processes, you're doing this every 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months, really for the rest of the patient's lives until there's a cure. And they are having to navigate their job changes, their geographic changes, their drug dosing, weight-based changes, and of course, insurance is changing all the time as they're getting married, getting divorced, and changing jobs. So you have to keep all these balls juggling in the air because every 4 weeks that patient's coming in your door and they need their drug. And so I think that's the challenge on the provider side. You need tools to do that. It's not human capable anymore. I think on the patient side, Kip, I think similar challenges that patients not nearly going to be educated enough to kind of know about all these background challenges, especially if they've never been on a biological, especially medications. I think dealing with the workflow, there's a little less on the patient there because they're going to rely on their provider or on their infusion suite, infusion center to handle a lot of that for them. But I think finding that right side of care for themselves, finding a place they need to go, that is a challenge. I think majority of patients still to this day, they're very trusting of their physicians. I think it's an older generation. I feel like my parents are that way. No matter what I tell them, they're going to go where their doctor tells them to go. And I do feel like that's still mostly how patients are finding their first infusion center, infusion suite is through their ordering physician saying, hey, I'm sending you to, name one of the hundreds of logos, right, that are out there, infusion center company. But I do think I'm seeing that change a little bit, especially as patients pick up and move and patients who have been on therapy for a long time, Kip. I think they're more knowledgeable about which infusion companies offer the resources, the services, the opening times that they need. The buzzwords like consumerization of healthcare, right? Where some patients, especially in the younger crowd, are getting more educated and, hey, I'm the patient, I have options. I know that I can go where I want to go. So they're going to use something like the NICA, the National Infusion Center Association, has a great infusion center locator that is up and published. So that helps them at least find the locations near them, look at the amenities they offer. All these companies have great websites for the most part, talk about, free Wi-Fi, comfortable chairs, they're open on Saturdays, they're open early, they're open late. So I think there are more resources today than ever for patients to find. So I feel like that is getting better on the patient side of things.
So Bryan and Reece, you mentioned technology, and I think we knew very early at SamaCare when we were going into the infusion market with our cloud-based prior authorization platform that we were going to need a technology partner. And thankfully we found you guys. Definitely makes us even more efficient and effective within the ambulatory infusion setting. And you've heard me say this a million times, right? There is no silver bullet. There's a lot of lead bullets to solve these problems. What other technology partners do you work with? What are the next phases for WeInfuse to continue to build on the foundation that you guys have created?
Well, I'll certainly let Bryan weigh in here after I give you my 2 cents. But yeah, from additional partners, SamaCare automating the prior auth process for our clients has been great. Additionally, we're partnered with a Nexus for copay assistance, cost share assistance, basically any kind of financial assistance outside a traditional insurance landscape. And Nexus helps manage that process. We signed recently a partnership with Tenor for some AI technology around getting discrete data out of documents and building a learning module around that. So where the software's learning which data points go where in WeInfuse and dialing that in. So we're excited about bringing AI into WeInfuse. We had a partnership that ultimately purchased Rx Toolkit. We are still real bullish on Rx Toolkit. It's a medication safety platform. One thing we probably should have mentioned when we were describing all the features of WeInfuse is we integrate with every distributor or all the major distributors, McKesson, Cardinal, Syncora, and CuraScript. And we're grateful for those distributors who have made this a lot easier on our clients to order drugs directly within WeInfuse. So consider those partners as well. Bryan, any others on this?
I think Kip and Reece, it's good to just talk about like how we look at partnerships. Our dream for WeInfuse wasn't that WeInfuse can do everything. I think that takes a long time, as complex as the industry is. So I think when we look at something like authorization management, we look at copay assistance, hub integration, distribution of drugs or whatnot. When we're looking for partners, we're looking for ways they can plug into our platform. We really want to be the platform. It's kind of a negative connotation for some folks. We kind of want to be the Epic for infusion or medication delivery. But we just don't want the negativity that comes with that. But we like the idea of being that we want to be close to the patient, close to the provider, very close to, of course, nurses and NPs and PAs that are working in the software, and be able to pull in and integrate with those folks in the industry that are going really deep on a specific problem. SamaCare is a great example. We know how hard it is to connect with payers and do forms and do the kind of things you need to do if you're really going to try to automate the prior auth process on the technology side. And SamaCare had already gone so deep there, and I won't say it's 100% of the focus, Kit, but I think it's most of the focus, right? And so when we're looking for partners, we're looking for solutions that are in the market, typically that our clients are coming to us with going, hey, you guys need to integrate with these guys. They're solving a real problem for me. They're doing a really great job of it. And SamaCare is a great example. We're just getting inundated with client requests. And if the cultures align and we both agree that the two of us is better than one of us trying to do it on our own, then we jump into that. And that's generally how we look at all the technology partnerships that Reece mentioned, but trying to plug in as many of those as possible. It's a very complicated industry. As we move into the pharmacy side of things, there are logistics challenges, other things, clinical challenges there as well that we may not be solving on our own today. So we're always looking for technology partners to plug in and kind of help coordinate, quarterback all that traffic. I think there's a lot of those on the future list. I don't think we have time to go over them all today, but if it's a challenge today that we feel like technology can solve, either we're going to try to solve it or we're going to look for a partner to plug in and do that.
Yeah, thanks, Bryan and Reece. It's like making a diamond, right? It's pressure and time, and these things don't happen overnight. And that's kind of how we at SamaCare vet our partners as well. And so grateful we found WeInfuse. And I would just, everybody out there, if you're doing infusions or you have an infusion center, you're an AIC, got to get a hold of WeInfuse. Talk to Bryan and Reece. It's a Class A outfit. And with these tech partnerships, we're really rounding the edges to patient care. And so, Bryan and Reece, before I get to my last question, how do folks contact you out there?
Yeah, just visit our website, WeInfuse.com or rxtoolkit.com. Email us at sales@WeInfuse.com or info@WeInfuse.com. You can always just email Bryan and I directly. It's just our first and last name, first dot last name at WeInfuse.com. We'd love to talk with you, and we're passionate about infusion, if you can't tell.
Yeah, we'll make sure to have that all up on the podcast. And last question. So you fellas know I lived in Texas for a while. We do go down there for meetings and conferences. There's still a great debate here at SamaCare, and our CEO wanted me to ask you this. What is the best barbecue in Texas, hands down?
Oh, man, you said this wasn't going to be a controversial podcast, Skip, so you kind of stepping in it there. It's all pretty good, right? I think I've had them all. I've still not gone to Snow's, Kip. I am trying hard to get out to Snow's. It's hard to go stand in line for 6 hours on a Saturday morning, but I hear it's worth it. But I have had Franklin's. It's pretty amazing. I'm a Black's fan. I'm a Black's barbecue fan here in Austin because you can actually get in and eat it. And so some of my favorite stuff there. I don't know about you, Reece.
They have Black's, Franklin's, Cooper's is great. But yeah, some of these places that have gained fame take hours to eat out. So I stick with my knowns, Cooper's, Franklin's, Black's. Those are great.
Yeah, I'm hungrier than I am wanting to sometimes just eat the fineness of the food. So yeah, I think it's an experience to go do that. And unfortunately, we're too busy building infusion software kits, so we don't have time to go stand in line.
Well, I guess when I heard there's an invitation to Snow's next time I'm out in your neck of the woods.
We do this line and bring us some. I think that would be really great. We'll see if we can work that out.
We will do it. It's a day. Well, hey, thank you so much. And again, thank you for the partnership with SamaCare. Folks out there, please get a hold of WeInfuse, and thank you for joining everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Kit.
Thank you for joining the Road to Care podcast hosted by SamaCare, the leader in prior authorization technology and services, where through a script-to-therapy operating system, we enable connectivity with clinics, payers, and manufacturers focused on optimizing patient care. Tune in next time, as together we can make things right. Enjoy the music written, produced, and recorded by Jamestown.